Working Cows Podcast, episode 97.
Welcome to the podcast that gives producers a platform to discuss and share paradigm-challenging practices. Practices that have increased the effectiveness of their operation and the joy that their families have received from this lifestyle.
Howdy, everybody. It's Clay Connery, host of the Working Cows Podcast, here with another episode for you guys, brought to you by the Global Ag Network, coming to you live from my in-laws' Ford Expedition we've been borrowing while we're moving, and here on the last day, the day before closing on the sale of our house, and we're moving out into an ocean of grass, as my brother called it. And really excited to be one step closer to that transition being fully realized. Appreciate your patience over this time while we're moving. But I wanted to sit down this morning and do a live episode, or do an episode for you guys, a solo episode for you guys, and just share with you some things that I've been thinking about. Really, this is something I've been thinking about since February. It was real long, cold time this winter when we were dealing with a long and pretty harsh winter by our standards anyways, here in western South Dakota. And so we were feeding hay and working for my dad, and I was rolling out the hay, and even though it was on leased land, and I there was a pattern that we had established of how we were rolling out the hay. I got bored with that pattern of just rolling it out in this old dry dam, and I wanted to see if we could maybe increase soil fertility. And so I started working my way slowly across the pasture, rolling out the bales that I was feeding one next to the other, and then the next day rolling out the bales in a different place. And so what I want to talk today about is this idea of asking why. And so I was thinking to myself, as I'm rolling this out, if the guy releasing this land comes and asks me why I'm doing this, that would be a good step, rather than him just coming and berating me. And so as we are managing people in our ranch businesses, I think sometimes it's important that we ask why. And I've got 3 specific questions that we should be asking ourselves and our employees and anyone connected to our ranch businesses. And the first one is, you should ask why did you do that specific task that way? And there are some good reasons to ask people why they did something a certain way when it was done differently than you expected it. First one is that it validates their humanity. It lets them know that they are a valuable member of the team. It lets them know that they have a purpose and a reason for being there, and a reason for sticking around, and that you value their input and that you want to hear from them. And it also lets them know that you aren't the end all be all standard of truth in your ranch business, and that you are willing to learn, and that you're open to new ideas, and that you want to understand what they were thinking, why they did it that way, and why they took a certain step that they might have taken. So I think the first question we need to ask, or first specific why question we need to ask, is, why did you do that thing that way? And maybe they had a good reason for doing it that way. Maybe they've been thinking, if we were feeding these bales across more of the land, we could increase the soil fertility on that area of land if we were more strategic about how we fed, rather than just unrolling hay at the same spot all the time, year after year. And that sometimes has had negative benefits or negative effects on the land for people who have done it that way. And maybe we can spread that out, spread that animal impact out. We can increase the soil fertility over a broader area and get some good benefits. So ask why they did that task that way, and be willing and open to their answer. And maybe you will have an opportunity to learn something with somebody who is maybe working under you, but they are a valuable member of the team. So that's the first specific question we need to ask. We need to ask, why did you do that way? Now we're going to go to some bigger picture questions specific questions. And the first bigger picture specific question is, why are we doing this specific task at all? And this is, I think we need to be open to our ranch businesses changing and evolving over time, and assessing all of the different things that we're doing on our ranch businesses, and being willing to ask, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this specific practice, this task, this thing that we do every year at this time? Why are we doing it now? Why are we doing it here? Why are we doing it there? A good example of that is Ken Olson in the last episode 96, I released a few weeks ago now. He challenged me, and we were talking before the episode started. It was a bonus episode that I released for people who support the podcast at patreon.com/workingcows at a level of $5 or higher. And he asked me, he said, have you ever considered with your leases in the hills calving in the fall? He says he knows a lot of guys with BLM leases in different places. He's worked in Utah and some other places where there's significant portions of people's ranch business and land that they control is in BLM or some kind of other government lease. And he says he knows a lot of guys who use those, who calve even just that portion of their herd in the fall because of the way the calendar works with the BLM lease and those things. And so we have, my parents have Forest Service leases that they have up in the Black Hills of South Dakota. And he asked, have you ever considered calving in the fall and making use of that land resource that way? And, I ran it past my dad, and he said, that is a good thing to think about. We'll have to analyze it a little bit more, but I think that's, should be the mentality that we have in our ranch businesses, asking, why are we doing this specific task? Why are we calving when we do? Why are we using the method we are of procuring our hay, whether we're putting up our own or buying our own? Why are we unrolling the hay? Should we be grazing swaths? Should we be doing something else? So we should be be willing to ask the questions. Why are we doing this specific task? Why are we willing to keep doing something year after year without questioning that specific task? And so I think that's another important specific question that we need to ask ourselves is, why are we doing this way? Why are we doing it this time of year? Why are we doing it here? Why not do it somewhere else? All those questions. It brings to mind a question. I think Dave Pratt's brought it up a couple of times. I know I've heard him talk about it a few times. I know he's talked about it on the podcast at least once after when we did the Nebraska disaster recovery episode. He said that, maybe you need to diversify your ranch business by finding land a long ways away, that if you don't have your ranch business diversified in a way where there's another area of land that you're managing that's a long ways away, then you're more exposed to the risks of your own environment. And he also said, maybe it's time for you to look for a different place to ranch. If the environment that you're in just isn't conducive to a profitable ranch, then it's maybe an opportunity for you to look for a different place to ranch, to pull up to 10 stakes and go. And that's an argument for operating on more leased land than owned land, because you are not as tied down and you're more mobile. And I know Shannon and Melinda Sims, when they shared at the High Plains Ranch Practicum the year I was there, they said we could pack this up and go. We're on very little owned land. We're on mostly leased land, and we could pack this up and go, and we could do it somewhere else. We don't want to. We love McFadden, Wyoming. We want to stay here. We want to continue to ranch here. We want to build into this community. We want to make it a better place to live, and we want to continue to succeed at improving the land and animal resources. But if we had to, it wouldn't take us that much to pack up and go somewhere else and do this. Take the cows with us and go. And so that was an interesting thing. So be willing to even ask such big picture questions when you're asking, why are we doing this? Be willing to ask, why are we doing it here? Maybe we could do it somewhere else. And, as I record these solo episodes, I go live in the Working Cows Facebook mob group, and, Brian Alexander says, if you don't try to ask the why question 7 times, you may never uncover the answer. And so that is a good point. I appreciate that, Brian. Appreciate you jumping in and engaging this morning. And if we aren't willing to continue to work and ask the why question, then we might not ever know the answer that we are trying to come up with. So, and the final one, brief episode this morning, really wanted to jump in here and give you guys an update on the move. I have a couple of weeks of camp coming up later in July that I might not get done. I might not be as regular with the episodes still in July. So I just wanted to give you that warning and let you know that. But the final specific question we need to ask when we're asking why is, why are we doing this at all? We need to know why we're doing it. And Simon Sinek is a guy that people have talked a lot about, and his videos have been shared a lot. I'll link to his video in the show notes page at workingcows.net/97. But you need to ask, why are we doing this at all? What is the point? What is the point? What are we doing here? And just be willing to have some uncomfortable answers and be willing to wrestle with it. Be willing to ask the why question 7 times, as Brian said. And you have to wrestle through, why are we doing this, so that everybody in the ranch business knows why. And this is more about communication with your team. This is more about sitting down with your team and figuring out why you're doing what you're doing. But then also new team members who come in after you've already laid down the why question. Maybe you and your grandpa talked about it 20 years ago and you know exactly why you're doing what you're doing. But maybe you need to regularly communicate, why are you doing what you're doing, and make sure everybody's on the same page so that everybody knows the why, so that everybody's willing to jump in and they're on board with the vision, and they're pursuing the same vision. They're not being pulled away by different desires. They're not being pulled off mission by different things about wanting to accomplish that. Maybe they want to introduce an enterprise that doesn't fit your why, and you can go back to your why. You can say, no, see, this is why we're doing what we're doing. That enterprise doesn't fit our goals, whether it's our goal of having family time, or our goal of being this kind of ranch, or our goal of, maybe this doesn't fit our goal of being mobile. We can pack up and go somewhere else and do this somewhere else. So we need to ask, why are we doing this at all? We have to know why we're doing what we're doing. And then that can keep us from being drawn away by different temptations and opportunities. And so you've gone through this process of asking the why question and asking, why am I doing this specific task? Why do we do this practice this way? And then why are we doing this at all? And giving people, humanizing the people in your ranch business, allowing them to think outside the box and maybe come up with ideas of doing things ways that you hadn't thought of, and questioning why you're doing certain practices, and then questioning the bigger why picture of why you're even existing as a ranch. But then what happens if you come to a place where you don't like the answer that you got? You can't defend this practice or this specific task being accomplished this way. You can't defend this practice and its position in your ranch business. You can't defend why you exist as a ranch in the first place. What do you do then? What do you do if you get an answer to a why question that you don't necessarily like? And I think we've already covered this on a few different episodes. I'm not sure how far into detail we've gone on the 6 thinking hats, but that's a decision-making tool that is kind of a team-based decision-making tool, and it talks about the white hat, the red hat, the black hat, the yellow hat, the green hat, and the blue hat. And I will link to a good summary of these 6 hats, but there's a book written by Edward de Bono that you can get very reasonably priced on Amazon, and I'll link to that as well in the show notes page, workingcows.net/97. So if you want to check that out, go ahead and check it out. But first, let me just summarize these hats. The white hat is the hat where you focus on the available data. You run some projections, say, hey, if we stop doing this, what difference is that going to make in our business? If we stop putting up hay and we start buying it, how much can we buy it for? How much can we honestly put up hay for? What's the difference that's going to make to the bottom line? What is that? How's that going? But as we talked about with Aaron Berger on episode 96, just last time I released an episode, I know it was a long time ago, but I promise probably haven't done everything humanly possible to get an episode out, but I have been trying my best to take care of my family, take care of my other responsibilities, and provide you guys with some content. And when I have an office, I'm recording this, actually, just break the fourth wall, let you peek behind. I'm recording this actually in a parking lot in Dickinson, North Dakota, because I'm getting rained out of the job I came up here to do. And so I'm trying to make this work. But anyways, so the white hat is the hat that analyzes the available data, but you also have to think about what other processes in the system are dependent on this task, what other processes in the system are dependent on how we do this, and the changing how you handle a specific task just to continue to chase that haymaking enterprise illustration. You stop haying those fields. Is there going to be positive benefits, negative benefits? Would you be better off to graze those fields? How is that going to change the overall business? You got to be a systems thinker, like we talked about with Aaron Berger on episode 96, being a systems thinker about changing your calving date and all the things that affects positively and negatively. And you need to just analyze the available data when you're wearing the white hat in your decision-making meeting with your team using the 6 Thinking Hats model. And you only wear one hat at a time, and that's where the last hat that we're going to talk about will come in. Then you go to the red hat. And the red hat is your hat of emotion, the hat of the gut reaction. And that is one that you use to just say, how do you feel about this? What is your gut reaction? And we talked about that on episode 69 with Roland Cruz and Patrick Toomey, and we talked to Patrick Toomey specifically about the testing questions that they encourage people to use. And I would encourage you to go back and listen to episode 69 with Roland Cruz and Patrick Toomey, and there's some really good stuff there about testing questions and how we can use them. And so we want to think through the emotions. And actually, in that discussion with Patrick Toomey and Roland Cruz in episode 69, workingcows.net 69, linked at the show notes page. Sorry, I got 3 hours of sleep last night. Linked at the show notes page, workingcows.net /97 will be a link to that episode with Patrick Toomey. About 5 minutes in, I think we talked about this stuff. And Patrick Toomey said, a legitimate concern is, do you feel queasy about this decision? Is there something in your gut saying, don't do this? And so the emotional hat is the one you wear, and you all just get it down, write it on a sticky note, stick it on a flip chart, because you're not doing ranch business until you're working with a flip chart. That's a joke, but anyways, maybe it's only funny to me with 3 hours of sleep. But anyways, so the red hat is the one that you use to analyze your emotional feelings about it. And then the black hat is where you analyze the potentially negative outcomes, looking at it cautiously and defensively, trying to see why it might not work. Try to poke holes in it and say, how likely is it that outcome is actually going to happen? How likely is it that all these negative things that we have come up with are actually legitimate concerns? And so that's the next step. And then the yellow hat is the hat of positivity, the hat of the optimist or bright, cheery outlook. And so you analyze that with the yellow hat. And again, just one more time, I'll reiterate, when you're doing these 6 thinking hats, everybody's wearing this hat at the same time. Everybody's wearing the yellow hat at the same time. Everybody's being optimistic at the same time. Nobody's allowed to be negative with the black hat when everybody's wearing the yellow hat. And so that's what you need to do. Maybe you can go get some really ugly cowboy hats next time there's a fair in town or something, and you can get a blue hat, a green hat, a yellow hat, a black hat, and a white hat, and you can just throw those cowboy hats out in the middle of the table. Say, hey, we're wearing the white hat right now. This is what we're doing, and we're not talking negative. We're only talking data. We're wearing the yellow hat right now. We're talking positive outcomes. We're not talking negative outcomes. Or the person who's married to the issue, who wants to keep trying to argue in favor of his idea, would be maybe tending to try to spin it positively when everybody's trying to poke holes in his idea. And you have to be able to say, nope, we're wearing the yellow hat right now, or we're wearing the black hat right now. We're not on the yellow hat. We'll get to the yellow hat. You'll have your turn. Everybody will be positive together. But right now, I want you even to think negatively about this and try and come up with a reason why this won't work. Then you have the green hat. The green hat represents creativity. This is where you develop creative solutions to a problem. Maybe you're starting to try and answer some of those negative or potential reasons why this thing won't work with the black that you came up with the black hat. So that's the green hat, and you're trying to just get a bunch of stuff out there. 90% of the stuff that you put on that flip chart, on those sticky notes, isn't going to be used, isn't even good ideas, but they're ideas, and you have to wade through those 90% bad ideas to find the 10% good ideas, or maybe even less, 99% bad ideas to find the 1% good idea. And everybody has to celebrate the win together of finding the good idea, even if they weren't the one who came up with it, because culture and teamwork matters more than who gets the credit. So there's that. And now the blue hat. This is the blue hat is the moderator. Maybe this is an outside third party. This is a consultant who is there for the ranch business meeting, and he is moderating this whole process. He's saying, nope, no black hats right now, only yellow hats. Nope, no red hats right now. Don't tell us about how it makes you feel. Only tell us about the data. And he's moderating the process, making sure that everybody's sticking to the process. So that's one tool for analyzing these issues. Another one is the testing questions. As I talked about, that's one of the things that you are going to just basically consider. One of the testing questions is, how do you feel about this in your gut? Do you have a queasy feeling about it? What are you feeling about these things? And so that's go back, check out that episode with Roland Cruz and Patrick Toomey, linked at the show notes page, workingcows.net/97. It is itself workingcows.net/69 if you want to go there and just check it out right away. But anyways, it looks like I got rained out today. I'm going to get this episode out later today, probably later this morning, and hopefully I'll have an opportunity to record at least one, if not a couple of episodes this afternoon. Maybe even get them out. Maybe even get episode 100 out, if things get real crazy. But anyways, there we go. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for your patience. Sorry, I haven't been able to get episodes out as regularly. Lost my studio at my office. Lost my house, place where I did most of my editing. Trying to not spend all of my time with my face buried in a laptop while we're living in a camper right now, while we wait for a rental property that we're going to move into to open up. And so, as I said earlier, hopefully towards the end of August, towards the middle of August, we'll be back to an episode every single Monday. And but for now, I'm going to try and do my best to get episodes out as soon as possible, as regularly as possible. And who knows, might get real crazy today and release a few. So we really appreciate you guys, and I'll see you as soon as I can with another episode of the Working Cows podcast.
We invite you to visit workingcows.net to subscribe to the show via iTunes or Stitcher. You'll also find detailed show notes pages, resources from our guests, and the industry leaders who have influenced them. For more ideas on putting your cows to work for you in a more profitable way, tune in next week.